like salad. Do you like salad?
Welcome to Canadian Salad,
a fun, factual, and friendly podcast about culture and integration in Canada.
I'm one of your hosts. I'm Hostion Ho from China, currently living in unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
And I'm Andrea McCauley, an immigrant from the United States, broadcasting you from the unceded traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations.
And you're listening to Canadian Salad.
Welcome back, everyone, and welcome back to Hostion.
Oh my God, thank you.
My love, I missed you so much. People had to listen to my voice.
I know. I mean, it's the lucky day they don't have to listen to my voice for once.
Yes.
They need a little escape, little break from me, and now everyone miss me even more.
They do. They do. I got quite a few emails saying like, "Where's Hostion? I'm so tired of listening to the white lady."
Stop.
No, but it was good. We did some fun interviews and some fun topics,
yes,
but yeah.
Which I still have to listen to it. I was away, so I didn't have time. I was having too much fun, so I didn't listen to it.
Where
but
were
now that
you?
I'm back. I was in Taiwan and Japan. I was 2 weeks each country and to kind of explore the cities.
Okay, one word to describe your trip. Go.
Ooh, chaotic.
Oh, that's
which is a good way. In a good way.
In a good way. Okay, good chaos. Well, I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad you've prepped for this episode, and I'm really excited to hear what you've discovered. What are we going to talk about, Hoshin?
Oh, today's not gonna talk about my travel. As much as I want to make it all about me, but today it's not really about me too, but also about you.
Ooh, about me as well.
Yeah, today we're gonna explore how white people's aggression is often framed as acceptable or even understandable, while aggression by people of color gets vilified. This word is new to me.
Yeah, it is.
Vilified.
It's vilified, yeah. Where people are made into a villain. Yeah.
Exactly. And we explore media portrays, cultural narratives, real-world consequences, and it's important for us to explore this kind of topic, especially nowadays with so many protests going on for Palestinian, for Congo, even like protests in general for equality, for women's rights, for LGBTQ rights, because I really was just in Taiwan for Pride as well, which is a protest, right? Wow. So I think this topic is always important in some sense.
It is. And I don't think I know there's a lot of unconscious bias when it comes to people seeing people who have causes that they're protesting for, and they normalize. There's been white supremacy, protests. And I think it was while ago, they had the anti-immigrant protest here in Canada. And people were just like, oh, cool. The trucker convoy. Oh, okay. And then when it comes to other types of causes that are specifically for people of color, more marginalized groups, it's a very different perception that people have. They come against it. And I'm really excited to explore this because the hypocrisy is really glaring and it's really loud to me and to you, obviously, but not to a lot of people. Yeah.
I agree. And before we get into it, have you witnessed such double standard in real life or experienced it?
I grew up with it for sure.
Oh.
My dad doesn't listen to the podcast. He hasn't talked to me in a while. We don't see eye to eye on basic human rights and dignity. But growing up, there was always this idea that, well, we should own a gun. It's our right to own guns. And I remember one time I'm driving with my dad in the car and I was like, well, what about when like black people own guns? He's like, they shouldn't own guns. He went into this conversation and in a bit of a rant why it's more dangerous for black people to own guns and why they don't know, they're not responsible with them, that black people with guns are gangs, and just had a very double standard in that aspect. And so, yeah, I definitely grew up with it. It didn't make sense to me because I was like, but it's a gun, so you both have it. You know what I mean? There's no I don't see who's more dangerous, but that was the narrative that he had and he was sharing with me and that he had been passed down to from his parents who were very racist. And my dad is racist and I have racism in me, but it was that narrative definitely was loud and clear and
Okay. I also have witnessed actually.
I know it's okay. Well,
I mean, it's your dad also. Sometimes I feel like I don't know whether I should like comment on it, honestly.
You can.
I mean, based on what I know about your dad and the stories you told me about your dad, I'm not really surprised, honestly.
Yeah.
But and always the more difficult one is your, close ones.
Family, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like my dad's homophobic and there's nothing I can do about it. I also don't have any contact with him and sometimes it's what it is.
Yeah.
I feel like if they're just like a normal stranger, like another man out in the street, I probably care less. But because it's my dad, sometimes it just hurts a little bit deeper.
It does. It hurts deeper, and it is not on us, or it will never be us that changes their mind or convinces them another way. It'll have to be a complete stranger or someone that they respect because they don't respect us.
They don't see you as peers, or they don't respect or believe that you know anything better than them.
Right. That your experiences have amounted to nothing. And who cares if you are exceeding in these areas and you've, done really well in your career. No, you're still a kid.
It doesn't matter.
And your opinion doesn't matter. Yeah. How about you, though? Did you have real life?
Oh, yeah. Actually, just this past weekend.
This past weekend.
Yeah, it was because I was in Edmonton for a ball for my kids, for house kids in Edmonton. So we finished the ball, so we have a brunch the next day, and of course, like all the kids together, we're really happy. So we were a bit loud, I have to say.
Yeah,
we were a bit loud because a lot of us.
Yeah,
and then we were happy. Having seen each other for so long, and we're just celebrating we had a successful event. So we were just a bit loud, and this old white man came to us, and you guys are too loud, disturbing everyone. You should stop. I was like, oh, okay. He, of course, was really unhappy and a white old man, unhappy about what we were doing. And okay, we got the note. And then when we finished my meal, about to leave. But before we left, there's another group of young kids, like probably, I don't know, young 20s, white ladies came in. They were also really loud. They are having their fun time, whatever. But we noticed that no one has asked them to stop.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Stop. No one disturbed them. But when a bunch of POCs and queer people were disturbing others, then we got stopped immediately. I know it's not really violence. I know we're trying to like talk about aggression in this topic.
Yeah, but it is a microaggression. Like it is like he had anger in his voice. He came and
he aggression
boldly,
to us because we disturb. I think this is
whatever idea of peace, like his
I agree. Like he thinks we disturb the peace of the restaurant. In some sense, yes, we are. I'm not gonna paint a better stroke or whatever. We were a bit loud, and because we're celebrating with so many of us, but that aggression is really uncalled for, especially when there's another group of white people who being also a bit loud, and he didn't stop them, or no one else stopped them, but we somehow become the target. So I think that kind of double standard always happens through my life, and it just happened to just literally last weekend.
Yeah, and this is like the beginnings of the Karen that a little bit, and But anyway, we'll get into our episode. But yes, that is. I'm sorry that happened, but that is exactly. That happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens really all the time. Sometimes just like how micro it is, I feel like. But I think there's enough stories like on the news or even in history that tells us that a lot of time is really not micro, is very obvious. So we're gonna dive into this kind of like double standard, like we're looking to from the past to now and why and what can we do about it.
Right.
And first, let's talk about history. I think
where do we begin?
I want to begin as this American Revolution first. Like in Western culture, especially North America, we have like long romanticized white violence. American Revolution is to cowboy myth or like war films. These acts are remembered as courageous or necessary, while the resistance
they were oppressed.
Yeah, exactly. But while the resistance of the colonized or racialized people from like slaves, revolts, or to indigenous uprising, they usually brand it as like savage or the savager is trying to fight back. But these Westerners, I'm trying to civilize them or free them. These
Yeah.
kind of double standards of violence
Yeah.
already. And this kind of double standard is not just about who fought, but it's also about who wrote the story after.
Yes.
Those who control the narrative also control morality, obviously.
Yes.
And psychologists call this the ultimate attribution error. We excuse aggression from people like us as situational. Yes, the in-group. If people are interested in what specifically what ultimate attribution error means, I suggest everyone to Google a little bit. It's like a psychology term. It talks about in-group and out-group, how even though the same behavior, but if it's happened in the in-group, it somehow is sympathized and understood. But if it's done by the out-group, it somehow is villainized.
Right.
Yeah. So because of this ultimate attribution error, we excuse aggression from people like us as in the in-group as situational, but label aggression from others as reflection of their character.
True. Yeah. It's
Yes.
like this is justified, but then when someone else does it who's not in your in group, it's character flaw. It's that they're
Exactly.
evil, they're bad, they're wrong, they're whatever kind of name
Exactly.
we give them.
Yeah, because white people controls the narrative and sometimes writes the history, right?
Yeah.
So white people as an in-group, aggression happens in this in-group usually since, we do that because we were forced to do so. And it's not who we are. It's just situational.
Correct.
But if the out group, which is, for example, indigenous or slaves, do it, they are just aggressive people. They're just violent people. That's why they love to do this. For them, it's not situational.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that kind of bias becomes like a narrative throughout history
Exactly.
because white people get to write history and control the narrative.
Right.
And hence they control the morality of it.
I love that line. I actually wrote it down because I'm teaching an unconscious bias workshop and that line is going in. And I will
Which
quote you.
line?
Those who control the narrative often always control morality.
Yes, please quote me.
Yes, I will. Absolutely. Good line. But it's true. That's actually the Second Amendment in the United States was because people, like enslaved people, far outnumbered white colonizers. And so this was the white man's way to legalize, quote unquote, using a gun because there were revolts. There were people resisting. There were people taking matters into their own hands and uprising, rebelling, revolutionizing their freedom because they were oppressed. And in order to suppress that and control that, we made it a law that you could own a gun in order to control your property, the people that you had enslaved. So it's a law. It's legal. So it's fine. It's justified.
It's just because it's the in-group.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why it's justified. Yes. But that's like the historical context of it. And in modern day, like especially nowadays in our screens, things that we consume in our screens every day, white violence is often complex and sometimes even cinematic. For example, like Fight Club or like the Joker, like even the Joker is so violent, kills so many people.
Sure.
But then the Joker there's a backstory of Joker. You sympathize with the Joker. He was hurt. He was being humiliated and bullied by society.
Yeah,
abused.
exactly.
So his violence is understood. So we actually sympathize with his violence. So his white violence is not something to look down upon.
Yeah.
So that's another great example.
Yeah.
But when people of color fight, the tone shifts. It's dangerous. It's chaos. Studies of media patterns shows that white aggressors are portrayed often as individuals. So when white aggressor does anything aggressive, it's like individual cases based on and their backstories.
Not the entire collective.
Not the
group
entire
of white
exactly.
People. Yeah.
They are named. They have the character to them. There is a lot of reasoning. But then when black or brown people like have aggressive behavior, they represent the community, or that's just the culture. And that's how a lot of media connect different narratives towards aggression. Yes. based on different group of people.
Yeah. I heard a Black gentleman being interviewed and he was saying, you don't understand. If I mess up, if I make one mistake, like I bear the weight of the entire population of Black men. Like that is what I carry because that's what has been given to me by society. But if someone else, maybe a white man does something, he's individually held accountable and he doesn't actually taint or actually impact the reputation of every other white man.
Yes.
The States has so many case studies of this. Like you would see any white shooter, it's like, oh, he was troubled. He was heavily influenced by this and that. But anytime the shooter is a person of color, it's just like, no one cares.
Oh, they're just like, yeah.
They don't give the backstory. They go to jail, lock them up. They don't humanize them. They're just like, of course they would. They default to these biases and these tropes and these villainization of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, which strengthens this idea that, if you are white people, then you are an individual. Then if you are not white, then you are just represents the whole community and just how the culture is. I don't know whether you have heard of the term angry Black women. I have heard many of
that trope is awful.
Yeah, but Black friends who are women, that I think a lot of Black women have this fear that they are kind of branded as this angry Black woman. That's why a lot of them cannot be angry. They often have to hold themselves in such
standard than everyone else.
Constraint. Yeah, they can't. Because they hate or worry that because maybe they one outburst, they're gonna be branded as this angry Black woman, or people are gonna see it as the whole Black people that are gonna contribute back to the whole community.
Yeah, and it costs them so much.
A lot of mental gymnastics.
So much retribution if you at all show any display of anything other than Pollyanna, happy white girl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is, again, that's double standard. It's not fair and it's not right. That's not equality, obviously. To continue the conversation, there's a study in 1998, a study of a lot of music videos. And this study found that Black men were often shown as aggressor far more often than white men, which also reinforcing the stereotypes of innate danger when you see a Black man. And there's also a paper in 2020 analyzed hundreds of film scripts, finding white aggressors were more often framed sympathetically, which again is another point that we just discussed.
Right.
To summarize, in media, when white people fight, we see humanity. But when others fight, we see villains. That's what the media are trying to portray and tell us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That historical narrative that is embedded in every part of our culture and society.
Yes. So that's something we always have to be aware of now that we know that's what it is, which we're going to discuss later too. And in real life too, it's not just like in movies and video, but in real life news, have things that happen. There's also a lot of these examples, like protest. There's another real life example.
Oh my gosh.
When the white rioters stormed the Capitol in 2021, many were described as misled patriots.
Yes.
Or patriots. They still call patriots.
Yes.
This is crazy. But when Black Lives Matter protesters march against police violence, their anger is met with tear gas or curfews.
Yeah.
They are not called patriots. They're not called protectors. They're not. They're called many other names.
Oh,
they're not great.
Even when, I think it was around the Black Lives Matter movement, I forget his first name, but Kaepernick, I don't know if he's a Black football player in the States. I forget which team, obviously, because I'm not a football fan. However, to show solidarity in the Black Lives movement, during the national anthem, he would take a knee. And this became a huge movement within NFL. But the response from people, the fact that this individual, a Black man, was taking a knee as opposed to standing with this heart of it. He was villainized, he was dehumanized, he was called unpatriotic, when in fact, taking a knee is still a respectful gesture within when you are doing the national anthem. He didn't hit anyone. He wasn't ranting and waving a gun in the air. He didn't merit any of this dehumanization. all he did was take a knee, and just the response was there was so much vitriol, so much. But it's the same with even in Canada, like the trucker convoys, or even more recently, there was I forget the name of the group, but there was a bunch of white men in white masks protesting CBC with a big sign that said CBC hates white people. And there was no RCMP around. They were able to walk through no problem. But when it comes to Palestinian protests, or not even, it's literally, we're just having a gathering and we're talking about the injustice of Palestinian people. Like, we're not saying burn down a media station. But so many of those protests in Canada have been met with violence from the RCMP, from universities, from students. It's the dichotomy and the hypocrisy and the lack of consistency. Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
And also, it's not just that. There's also like a psychologist has framed it as well. Like there's a psychologist called P. Spickner.
Okay.
I
It's
butchered
okay.
his name.
We'll put the link in our show notes so y'all can read it for yourselves. This man knows 5 languages, so you're welcome. My gosh. It's okay.
Yeah, but it's like a social kind of psychology that when audience perceive white violence, we rarely racialize it. It's like a psychology, even us, like we too.
True.
We rarely racialize white community violence, but when violence involving Black people, it's very common for us psychologically frame it as a group behavior.
Yeah.
As a race thing rather than an individual thing. And that we were talk more about actually after, because there's a lot also like police reports, a lot of like evidence to prove that as well. And how we can combat that as well, obviously. So I'm just saying, like, all of this are very not isolated perceptions about why violence always gets the pass, and other people gets to be getting vilified because they're not white.
Right.
Now there were so many examples. I think it's also important for us to know like how this come to be, how this kind of psychology come to be. Even this for P. Signer, why we see white people as violent as individual but not others. And first, I want to get into another psychologist. His name is Robin DiAngelo. He writes that white people are often socially protected by an assumption of innocence.
Yes.
It's called whiteness as innocence. It's a psychologist. She calls it white fragility.
Yes.
When white people shows rage, it's treated as a temporary loss of control, not a sign of danger. Black and brown people anger, meanwhile, is racialized. It's interpreted as inherent violence or disorder. That's why a white shooter is troubled, while a Black or brown suspect is radical.
Yeah.
That is the difference. I want to also add on that is like this kind of dynamic is reinforced by decades of media framing, according to a research by Media Smart Canada. Journalists often individualize white perpetrator, but racialize non-white ones.
Yeah.
And they frame it that their community as a complicit to it.
Exactly.
So that's one of the major reasons. Whiteness as innocence, that kind of preconception.
Oh, it is. I could go into the religious component of whiteness being innocence, like white women should be virgins before they got married back in the day, but it's okay to rape and to do other things to women of color because they're not innocent. And that I grew up with a purity culture in my religious background. But even outside of religious circles, there is this idea that if a white woman cries, or if a white woman goes missing, all of the authorities, everyone is out there searching for her. But when it's indigenous women who go missing,
I know.
So I don't know. There's not much we can do, right? The dichotomy and the disparity of the response is so far.
Also,
apart.
because part of it is because white people usually control the narrative too, right?
Right.
Yeah. So like they write the story, they decide what is important, what is not important.
Right.
They control historically, even nowadays too, like they operate the majority of the institutions that produce stories, journalism, film, education, politics. They get to control how aggression is contextualized.
Yeah.
When white men rage, they often get to tell their own stories. What is the reason of their rage?
Right.
But when people of color rage, they rarely get the agency to tell the story. That's why often their anger gets to seen as like a group thing because they don't get the chance to individualize or even contextualize their story behind their rage. So that's another thing. And the last thing I also want to discuss is the institutional bias that is built into rage, or like the consequence of rage. Like the justice systems that it's amplifying these biases. Research on sentencing disparities shows that Black defendants accused of violent crimes receive a longer sentence than white defendants for similar offenses, which I don't think a lot of us are surprised, honestly. I think we all know that as well. But that is another example of how institutions have like reinforced this bias.
Yes.
Even the consequences of it.
Yes.
To give you this idea of Black men when they commit a violent crime is way more serious because they deserve it, you know.
Right, right.
And
they're not human. They've never been human. Like even in the Canadian context, when we talked about the Indian Act, Indigenous people were not even considered a full human.
True.
So if you start there and you think that we've gotten better, you think that just disappeared and that just went nowhere, think again. Like
think again, indeed.
Yeah.
I think that's another, I agree. I think it's again, because who writes these policies and who controls the justice system? White people. And then, again, they control the narrative, right? They see white people as not, or they see Black people are not fully human.
Right.
So they get to control that, they should get longer sentences.
Yeah, exactly.
That is what it is. Yeah. And even in police training studies, like also reveals that racialized threat perceptions. Officers are faster to associate Black faces with danger.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's literally studies.
Yes. Even in schools, Black boys versus white boys are already, there's been studies on that, how teachers they just see Black little boys as threats, as aggressive, at all these tropes more than little white boys. Like it's in the school system. Yes.
And like this kind of institutional biases, of course, validates the cultural ones, like the media ones, for example. And if society constantly sees white aggression as forgivable, the law eventually follows suit, right?
Yes.
Because the media keeps telling you why violence is forgivable, is understood, is understandable.
Yeah.
That's why the law eventually also follows that narrative.
Yeah.
That's why sentencing, policing, that same narrative. That's why we still live in a society that's every level of it, from social, from media to law, has the same narrative. We need to break that institutional bias. That's where we should start. Yes.
Yeah. There's so many examples. I was just thinking of Nelson Mandela, who for a really long time was labeled as a terrorist. James Baldwin was also labeled as a terrorist. Martin Luther King. Like there are so many people. And even now we look at the leader of Israel, who is of European descent and gets away with anything that they do to Palestinian people who are mostly brown. It doesn't fall short at the Canadian border or at the Western border. It is, I have a Black friend, she said, anti-Blackness is the one thing that unites the world. And she's right.
It really is. Like, again, the winner writes the history, writes the story. Who gets to control the story? Who gets to call people names? Even the terrorists. Hitler is a terrorist. But if Hitler wins the war, he won't be. Everyone else becomes the terrorist.
Exactly. It's
I think...
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think a lot of... all the colonizers, I would say they're all terrorists. But because they won the war, they get to call the indigenous the terrorists, or indigenous the uncivilized. They get to call everyone else other names because they won the war.
Right.
Who
We're the
wins the
heroes.
war?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
are the
we're the
hero.
heroes for stopping Hitler. But what we did in Hiroshima,
We still call us heroes because
we're still
this is
heroes. Like that was, I know I'm saying the name wrong, but yeah, it erases any type of quote unquote wrong, or it justifies any kind of other violence because
exactly.
we save the day. We're, like you said, we write the narratives, we hold the morality. We write the morality. Yeah.
We hold the morality. Exactly. So the last part of this podcast, I would, as we often do, now that we know so many of this from historical
heavy,
context, psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we learn a lot of terms, blah, blah. And now most important part is now that we know of this, what can we do about it? What is the reflection? What is the call to action? Of course, it's not something that it can change in the flip of a finger. It's gonna take forever for cultures to change, for narrative to be rewritten. But all of us have to do our part in every day. Now, especially, for example, we need to notice media narratives. Now that we know a lot of media, how their stories is changing our narrative, we need to be very careful when we see violence on screen.
Right.
We have to think about who is the actor, what is his race, class, gender, affecting the aggression that is portrayed or justified. Who tells the story? Is it for white people or is it for other people? How is this violence portrayed and what is the morality of this violence?
Exactly.
We need to notify this and think about it. And we need to question our assumptions. When we see white people fight, when we see black people fight, do we see the motive? Do we see individuality behind these fights? Do we see the whole story? And then we also need to advocate.
Yeah.
We need to support policies and community work that recognizes that aggression is not a monolith.
Yeah.
That many community resist and struggle and fight for justice. And their violence and anger must be understood in context, not dismissed.
Or punished.
Or punished, yes. So then when we like even see a quote unquote angry black woman in a community or in just out there, I think now more than ever, we need to have more sympathy.
Yeah.
To also understand that this behavior of one black woman, it does not count as the whole black community. And we also need to have this understanding that, oh, she's angry. Where's her anger coming from? We need to sympathize of that anger. Give the empathize that anger as much as there's empathy that we give to white people.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and
that's
validate people's perspective rather than dismiss them. That we're validating when communities come forward and say that Indigenous women and children have a much higher rate of disappearing, and what is our country and laws doing about it? Like, we're not validating it. We're ignoring it. We're not validating the struggle, or even just old growth forestry protests, like people who are literally just standing there and they're met with dogs and they're met with guns and brute force. And why is it that is our response? Even if tie it back to like this gentleman that told you to be quiet. While that was a conversation, there was still this inherited idea that these white people over here are innocent, you are not, and I'm going to do what I can to punish, or at least to try to control that which I think is not part of my in-group and that which is not acceptable. That is the undercurrent, and that's where violence comes from. That's where the violence comes from. If it's already there, he may not have been violent, but that doesn't mean that that thread of perspective and that posture isn't already living within his mind and his biases in the way that he lives and interacts with people. So advocating, calling it out, wait a minute, excuse me, sir. And this is like a call for white people too, because we have that power and privilege. We can call that out. So we need to. We have nothing to lose. Nothing. Honestly, nothing. That's me.
I agree. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think, like, I personally also have to say when I was like prepping this podcast, I think of a woman, an Indigenous woman that I often think of, because I'm not really close with her, but in the interactions I had with her, she is a very angry woman. She, a lot of interaction I had with her, she had this kind of aggressive personality, just say that. And I often see it, oh, it prevents me to understand her because she has so much anger in her. And then now that, especially after popping this podcast, I suddenly think of her and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should give her, like, I should have understood her a bit more, give her more sympathy rather than feel like reluctant to get to know her because she is an Indigenous trans woman. She had a lot to be angry about.
Yeah.
Rather than me here sitting, oh, I don't want to be close to her because I don't want to, she's too aggressive for me.
Yeah.
I should give her more sympathy, empathy, and understanding that she really has a lot to be angry about this world, about how she move in this society as a Indigenous trans woman.
Yeah.
And I feel like after knowing all of this, prepping this podcast, it definitely gave me a new perspective of how I see her.
Thanks for sharing that, Hostion, and for being vulnerable and the journey that I think many of us are on. And I think it's hard for us to admit that. It's hard for us to like reconcile, oh, actually, I had this unconscious bias in this perspective.
We all do. We
right?
all do.
We all do. It's very
like,
natural. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, like in a research, one of the research I cite, the psychologist P. Spickner said it so, like, you know, all of us, generally all of us, rarely racialize white violence.
Yeah.
But when it's involved other people, we usually racialize them and see them as a behavior of a group rather than an individual. And I am definitely part of that.
Yeah.
And I also want to be a better person. And I also feel like now that I know this, I need to be more cautious of my behavior.
Yeah.
And my conscious bias when I think about things.
Yeah. And that's huge. That's it. And it's a model for us. It's a reminder that like we're all capable of doing better and changing. And I think in researching this unconscious bias, like the limbic system, your brain, it has elasticity in it to actually change, to actually, you know, look at things differently and say, oh, I've been actually looking at it this way. I need to look at it another way. Because the brain is always making shortcuts in order to survive. It may not have the full story, so it fills in the gap. And it's based on how, anyway, I won't get into it. But all this to say, we have the capacity. And
we all do.
I appreciate your genuine, you know, sharing that. And it's humbling for me. Like I look up to you in that way. And I hope that resonates with listeners as well, to know that this is all of our responsibility. No matter what shade of melanin we have, like this is something that we all are capable of doing and doing better. So thank you, Hostion, for doing all of this and presenting all this really good information. I learned a lot. It affirmed a lot of the things that you hear in pockets, but then when you have it like full, you start, like you just can't unsee it once you start seeing it.
I know.
And that's good. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And it can give you context why it's happened this way. And I often, especially through this, I definitely, one thing I take away, except the thing I just mentioned, the other thing I definitely takes with me is that how people who control the narrative gets to be the good guy. I think that we affirm that kind of idea for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And even the violence gets a pass. Because they control the narrative.
It's exactly. Yeah.
But now, should we get into
drum roll?
Pop quiz?
Yes.
If you've never been to our podcast,
joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. And we often end our podcast with a pop quiz, which neither of us know the question or the answer, and then see whether we know about things.
See how much we know about Canada or about this topic.
Yeah. About this topic, exactly. So, Andrea, do you want to go first?
Sure, I would love to go first. So my question is, what demographic in the world owns the most guns? That's the question. I know it's funny because I think you know the answer.
America, but the United States.
Demographic of people.
Demographic, white people, like
gender,
like racial?
race,
like white man.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Ding ding, you are correct. White men are the largest group of gun owners, about 48% of them. And of course, this is key demographics out of the States. There's no actual research globally or even not many. And even in Canada, it's very low, but I would be safe to bet that like most people in Canada who own guns are typically rural white men. Yeah. But in the States, 48% own a gun. And this is compared to about a quarter of white women and non-white men, 24%. So 24% of non-white men actually own a gun. And and of course it is typically within rural areas have the highest rate of gun ownership. So there you go. But yes, so I don't know if we're owning lots of guns, who is the more violent? I don't know. Anyway, just saying. All right, your turn.
Okay, my question is, there's a lot of assumption of like violent game led to a lot of violence, but my question is specific to youth. Ooh. Does violent game led to more youth violence?
Ooh,
it's a yes or no question.
Ooh, I'm gonna say no.
You don't think violent games led to more youth violence?
No.
Your final answer?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, yeah, you're correct. Yes. Ding ding. We both get good.
Hey, we're on fire. Yes.
So there's a lot of assumption out there that people are getting more and more violent because of like, there's a lot of violent games out there and they're teaching, especially our youth, to be violent. But actually, that's not true. There's a report actually published by Statistics Canada, January 23, 2025, so this year actually.
Wow.
The data is from 2002 to 2023, so it's almost 20 years of study, that violent crime actually decreased in general, while violent game has skyrocketed. Increased.
Interesting.
So more violent game were consumed while the youth violent crime has decreased. Yes. So there is no correlation of
good job, parents. I think that's why I said no, because I think a lot of what children end up doing is a result of the way they are parented and the narratives that the parents gave. And I mean, Lincoln all the time he's just a sponge, and he will make these conclusions based off things he's heard me say, and I'm just like, wow, yes, you're correct, So that's cool. It's good to know. I mean, not that I'm going to have him watch, here's a violent game, son. You won't be violent, because I think violence, that's a whole other thing. We've normalized violence on the screen and in games so much.
We do normalize a lot of violence in this world.
Yes.
That's something that I think, it's just like very normal for us to see people killing another person on screen, on games, whatever it is.
And so then we become numb to when it actually happens, I mean, that's another episode, folks, but thank you so much, Hostion. I'm so glad to have you back. You are the half that completes the whole. And if you are new to us, please leave us a review. You can find us on all major platforms where our podcasts are broadcasted. You can also find us on social media. Sometimes we do some fun things. I haven't been doing a lot of fun things because I've been busy doing stuff, but we are on TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram, and would love to hear from you what you think of this episode. hello@canadiansalad.ca, and that is our website where you can actually find all of our juicy resources. You can find our beautiful mugs on that website as well, i.e. our faces. Not like we don't sell merch yet. If we get more listeners,
but if you want to.
Yes, exactly. You could. So that's canadiansalad.ca. So we'll talk to you again next week, and have a wonderful week.
Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Okay, bye. Canadian Salad is written and produced in British Columbia, Canada by Hostion Ho and Andrea McCoy. Theme music is by Naver Avatyan from Pixabay.
This has been a good Janklin production.